All right, so to start off, I do want to indicate that that Kona really is, or Gen 2 as we call it as well, is the same database, so all your information is still there. Kona is based on a newer platform with an updated interface with additional functionality. Okay. Also want to remind users that the current version of the Connect system, Gen 1 or Forms, will be disabled at year end. So by January 1st of 2020, you will no longer be able to access it. So I do recommend to transition earlier to provide sufficient time for training and using the Kona platform. So for the most of this session, I will go over the repair side of the system. However, I'll also touch base on the parts, counter sales, accounting, the admin side, and reports. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is the service board, which is something that's a functionality that's new to Kona. And what the service board is it gives a manager a bird's eye view of what's in the shop, what is being worked on, and who's working on it. All right. So to start off, we're first going to check in a unit. All right. So of course, if you have multiple locations, you'll have a board for each location. Okay. So I'm going to check in a unit. So click on the check-in button on the top right corner. Okay, and then I'm just gonna search for a unit. So if you know your unit number, you can type it in here, or if you, in this case, I'm just gonna scroll and select something random. So I'm gonna select maybe for Trucker Link TRL 00011. So to select it, click on the select button over here. All right, and the next thing it's going to prompt me is, okay, the unit's now in the yard or in the shop. Is there any additional work that you want to indicate for this unit? So maybe unit comes in, the driver's like, you know what, please take a look at, please check the brakes, all right? So I can, enter in labor via service programs. If we also have access to the motor labor guide, we're going to find a valid unit. But what it does is it looks at the unit VIN, and then it logs into the motor database, and based off the VIN, it will determine the make and model and year. And then you have different icons such as brakes, engines, and they'll give you the various repair times for that specific job. All right, so for this unit's not set up, so I'm just going back to the good old VMRS. If I want to do a search, let's say I want to do brakes, type in brakes here. All right, and let's say the front brakes. Driver says there is a loud noise. Okay, so we can indicate that this is something that needs to be addressed. Okay, then I'm going to click on next. All right, and let's say I don't want to assign a technician yet. So this is optional. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to check in the unit. All right. All right. Now we have that unit that we just checked in, and you'll notice that it's in red. And the reason why it's red is because under work required, you'll see a PM here, and we click on this link. You notice that we actually have several PMs for this unit that are well overdue, so since 2011. All right. And of course, on top of that, we also have this front brakes and drums, which really is what we just added. So we can treat it as like a service reminder or deferred work. Anything that's outstanding for a unit would appear here. And specifically, it's in red because there is PMs, right? If there wasn't any PMs that are due, the thing probably show yellow or white just to indicate the status. So red, of course, will draw your attention to it, indicating that, hey, there's something outstanding, usually for defects or PMs that are set up. All right, so the unit is now in the shop. And as a manager, we were like, okay, just trying to figure out your day. All right, let's say we want, there's a PM done. Maybe Jorge is probably the best for this. So we can click on the assign button, get this pop up here. And I'm going to say Jorge is going to work at this unit at 11 a.m. All right. Okay, so now we'll say this unit, there's some work needs to be done, and we're going to assign it to Jorge. So the next thing I'm going to do is now log in as a technician. pull the screen over here. Okay, so this is really the Connect Tech side if you've seen it, but really it's the technician portal. All right, so if you need tech licenses, it's not required, but a lot of the function in the system would work off this tech side of the this tech portal. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as Jorge. Okay, so Jorge is currently on something else right now, but if Jorge clicks on his assigned work, right, he's going to see that unit that we just assigned to him. And of course, it'll give him the unit number, who the unit belongs to, and of course, the scheduled date and time. And this is something that you can also use to help control the flow of your shop. So let's say you have a busy shop, you have multiple techs, and they keep asking you, hey, what is the next unit that I work on? So you can create do multiple assignments. So let's say this unit at 11 a.m., another unit at 12:30, another unit at 3 p.m., and so forth. All right, just to kind of better control the flow. And of course, they don't have to do it in that order, but of course, the system does give that scheduled date, so they have a sort of a recommended time, or at least a guide to figure out which one to work on first. Okay, another thing to note is you don't have to assign a unit to a tech, but scheduling it or assigning it helps restrict that view, so the tech has a better idea of which units they should be working on, because you could have a huge yard, a lot of units, and was running around trying to figure out which one. So by assigning it, at least it filters to what they should be focusing on. Okay, so I'm going to select this unit, click on select. All right, and when we log in here, so there isn't a work order for this yet. All we're looking at this point in time is a tech, just looking at this unit and all the outstanding work that needs to be done. And all the outstanding work is on the left side of the screen under work required. So we get the various PMs that are due. Just for now, I'm just going to work on that specific brakes that I had added earlier. All right, so I'm going to click on front brakes and drums. Okay, and by clicking on that icon, it's going to move to the right side of the screen. And now the text time is clocked onto this specific labor line for this unit. And when that happens, the system now creates a work order number. And so if you want to see the work order number, it's under the summary tab. Okay. So the labor tab is really anything labor that needs to be done. Left side means outstanding. Right side means that it's currently, this is a labor line on the actual work order. And in this case, text time is clocked on. So right now it's been 0.02 of an hour that has elapsed since we started. Okay, so if we want to add parts, click on the parts tab. Okay, so if I have a barcode scanner, I can scan it in. I could type in brakes, for example. Then we'll do an auto search for any part that has brake in the code or the description. All right, so I'll select this one over here. Oh, actually, this is a course. Let's pick something else. All right, so in this case, I add this part here. System also tells you, if you had specified a location for this part, exactly where in the warehouse this specific part is located, right? Makes the tech's job a bit easier. So tech can go grab, and it'll also indicate how many parts are on the shelf. So all right, so we have some. So tech would then go to shelf, grab one, come back, and then issue the part out. All right. All right, so let's say some time has passed and the tech has finished the front brakes and drums, and let's say there's additional work, and I'm just going to ignore these PMs here for now. I'm going to say, you know what, actually the headlights look like they should be replaced as well. All right, so we'll go to VMRS, headlights, I'm going to say lights, for example. So the headlamps, right? We're going to add that over here, and we're just going to quickly add it to the work order. All right, so by doing that, it's work required. And of course, there could be situations where a technician or a manager can add additional work for that unit, so service reminders or deferred work. So next, and let's say it's not priority, it can be left there, and the next time you clock onto this unit, you will see this outstanding job to be done. All right, in this case, headlights, you know, the trucks need their lights, otherwise it's a real liability. So in this case, we're going to work on it. Okay, so I click on it, now move to the right, and the text time now moves from the front brakes and drums to the lights, so headlamps over here. All right. If we want to, if we're waiting on some parts of front brakes and drums and now they're here, we can now click back on this sort of stopwatch. And text time goes back to the front brakes and drums, and we can add the parts and all that fun stuff. Okay. In this case, I'm going to click back on lights, headlights, move our times back here. And let's say I want to add some parts. All right. Let's add other brakes, for example. This air hose here, issue part. I'm like, oops, wait a minute. I'm actually on lights. I should move the front brakes and drums. So really easy. We just say in a situation, the tech is issued to the wrong labor line, just drag and drop. So in this case, we'll click, drag, and drop. Right, then we move down here. Now we see those two parts. Right, nice and easy. All right, so now let's assume that we're done our work order. All right, we added our parts, we did a walk around. We're like, okay, headlamps need to be done. And now the technician's like, okay, I'm done this unit. I'm going to work on the next one. All right, so to do that, they go to the summary tab over here. They enter in the updated reading value. So in this case, let's say it's 245,000. Right. If we want to sign off, we can do that. You know, help make things accountable. If you want to add any images to the file, you know, whether you have some kind of document or you're going to take a picture of a specific unit. That can also, let's say you're a retail repair shop. A unit comes in, you did the work, and the guy asks you, "Hey, why did you do this?" And you're like, "Okay, well, this is rusted or this is loose," and you can really, click on this here and add the picture to that specific one. So, one thing to note is in the Kona platform is browser based. So you can really use a computer, use a mobile device, a tablet. So for the technician side, if you want, you can also use a tablet because the system was really designed for that. So the icons are nice and big. It's not too cluttered. If you go down that route, I do recommend using an iPad due to the form factor. You can also use Android tablets as well, except a lot of those Android tablets, the form factor is more like it's like 16 by 10, 16 by 9. So they're really more for like viewing movies. And of course, some Android tablets have very high resolution, so the text might look a bit small. All right, but that can still be used as well if you're comfortable. But if you want to go down the tablet route, I do recommend using an iPad or any other tablet that has a similar form factor. Okay, so if you use a tablet, click on the picture icon, take a picture, attach it, and then now you have that evidence if they ever ask you why this was done. Okay, so we're going back to this again. We finished our work order. We're done. We added our text. We signed off. We added the latest readings, and now we want to click on Unit Ready up here to indicate that all the work is done. So I'm like, okay, well, you got the 3 C's that are not populated. So something specific to the Kona platform is the ability to add the 3 C's. So your complaint, your cause, and your correction for each labor line. Okay, so this is optional. Otherwise, the default really would just be one giant notes field. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to populate all 3 C's so we can get to the next stage. All right, so populate all my 3 C's, and then I'm going to click Unit Ready. And now that all the things done, Tech has done his work, and now he can work on the next unit. All right. Any questions so far? Any questions, please type them into the chat box. So what I'm going to do now is, of course, by refreshing my service board, I'll notice that this unit that I checked in is no longer there. All right. And we can set it up where it remains here, and then a manager can manually check it out in the departure tab. It's optional, but currently for this demo company, the moment a technician indicates that all the work is done, it's automatically checked out of the service board. Okay. So now I'm going to go to the complete RO screen, and this complete RO screen is really supposed to mirror the functionality of the the work order screen in the current Connect system. Okay, so let's say the unit that we just finished is TRL0011. That's the one, and we'll click on the work order number to get into the details. Okay, so the left side of the screen is the labor, the right side of the screen is the parts. Okay, so we want to change, let's say in this case we are a retail repair shop. All right, I'm going to say, okay, charging, in this case I'm going to charge, 3/4 of an hour to replace the headlights, and maybe for the front masonry job I'm going to charge an hour. Okay, so if there's any surcharges, I can say, all right, in this case, yes, there was a surcharge for, say, towing fee, for example, and I'm going to charge you, flat fee of $25. Okay, if I want to add more parts, that can be done here. And let's say I'm pretty happy here. Do my profit and loss. It's like, all right, so this is my cost, this is my profit margin. All right, I'm pretty happy with those. I can just click on invoice, and the system's then going to generate a printout of that invoice. Okay, which you can then hand over to the customer, and then they will pay you accordingly. All right, so that's a life cycle from the service board, checking in a unit, adding additional work that needs to be done. Then the technician would then log on, see that assigned work on it, add parts, clock on the labor line, all that. When they're done, they click on unit ready, and then at that point, it's up to the manager to review that work order and close out or invoice as required. Okay. But let's say an example here, you don't want text to clock on. You rather just have them print out. You rather just kind of, the service manager or foreman would create the work order, print out a piece of paper, and then get it, hand it over to text to manually fill out the sheet. And then once they're done, they'll put it in some pile, and then the manager or foreman will then review it and then enter the information. So that can still be done in the system. All right. So to go through that process, in the complete RO screen here, we're just going to create a new RO. Okay, and then of course we'll select the unit that needs a job. So I'm going to maybe select this unit here, TRL0001. Okay, so now the system creates a blank work order, and then we're going to populate the work that needs to be done. So click on Add Labor. Okay, so there's some outstanding PM that needs to be done. I'm just going to quickly add some of these outstanding work. So the accessories group, the flywheel, the front brakes and drums. Okay, so I'm going to add these 3 different ones. I'm going to add it to the work order. Okay, so we have these 3 different labor lines. Now, let's say we want to, send this out to the techs to get worked on. All right, so maybe in your shop you don't want techs to clock on, so we'll just print out a sheet to give that same information. So we'll click on this repair order button up here. All right. So for those of you that do use the current Connect system and print out this sheet, it's more or less the same thing. So on top you get the header information about the unit, the date, the unit number, the reading value, at least the latest one. And of course, below you have your labor line, a few lines for parts used, and repeating because we have 3 of them down here. All right, so one thing to note is if you do use this, you'll notice that the barcodes are missing. So on the current system, at least the Kona platform, if you do want to scan technicians, you'll need to buy the technician license, all right? But if you don't need that, you can really go through this method that I'm gonna show you. So you create your work order, print a sheet, hand it over to the techs, all right? Let's say 3-4 hours later, you review your pile and this work order is now complete. So you look at that piece of paper and you're like, okay, let's indicate all the work that has been done. So let's say, okay, the first one they worked on was the accessories group. So we'll click on the actual hours to indicate how much time each technician spent on this. All right, so let's say in this case, accessories group, Cherry worked on this. right? And then she spent, no, let's say from 9:30 to about 10:30. Nice and easy, right? System's like, okay, that's 1 hour. That's fine too. And of course, if you want to add another tech, let's say this was a two-man job. So Terry worked with another tech. And I'm going to say, let's pick Donald Duckworth from here. And same thing, maybe start a bit earlier. And he worked until 10:30. Seems like, yeah, that's 1.2 hours. That's perfectly fine. And same thing, we'll repeat the same process for manually entering how long each tech spent, which hopefully the tech indicated on that that printout. All right. And then same thing here. Whatever parts they use, we'll manually add the parts. So if you want to type in or create a brand new part, or let's say I'm gonna pick this part, this hose over here. I think it's actually a core, so maybe not the best parts. But in this case, because it's a core, as a self-linking core, so the parent system is going to issue out both the parent part and the core part as well. All right. Okay, so let's just, and same thing, you go for the other labor lines, add those respective runs. In this case, I think this specific job actually had an included part, which is what we have here as well. Okay, and let's say, for example, that for this same unit, there was actually some work that need to be done at a third-party shop. Okay, so in this case, what we're going to do here is we're going to go to purchasing, and we're going to indicate that there is sublet work or outside repairs that was done. So under purchasing, we click on new purchase order. Okay, and then of course, now we go to a separate screen here, and when it's like, okay, what type of PO? So if you want to do a specific parts PO, that can be done here as well. But what I want to do is a sublet PO, so outside repair. Right? If I know the vendor, I can do it from a search. So let's say it was A&A Towing that was servicing this specific unit. All right, so we click on Add Labor, and let's say it's something else. So let's say it's transmission, and they're quoting you maybe 2 hours at $125 an hour. Okay. And of course, if you want to print out a PO, that can be done as well. Maybe the shop wants some kind of authorization, or maybe for your process, you want some kind of something you want to hand over to them just to authorize to proceed and go ahead and repair this unit for the respective labor line. Okay, so let's assume that repair has been done already, and you actually have the invoice on hand. You can go ahead and enter the invoice. So up here, click on Process Sublet Invoice. Okay, enter the invoice date. Let's say it was done yesterday. And then click on Process Sublet Invoice. Okay, so now the system is like, okay, you have an invoice for this, so that's taken care of. Now we go back to the Labor and Parts tab. We'll see that, hey, we have that fourth labor line, and we noted that, hey, the last one here wasn't that internal. We know it's external because it's a sublet 2, and it shows you who the vendor is. All right. And let's assume that this is an internal unit. We're not going to invoice it out. What we really care is the cost, which we have captured. So in this case, assuming everything is good, you can then click on Close RO to file it away. And now the manager can then review the next work order and then enclose it or invoice it out as need be. Any questions on that process? Nope. All right. Okay, so another thing that's, I guess, introduced in the Kona platform are PM inspection checklists. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to the technician login, and I'm going to select a unit. So one thing to note about the tech logins is, for those of you that do use the technician scan module on the current Connect platform, the way it was designed is techs can only, imagine needs to create that work order first. And the tech would then scan on to that, and then the manager will, it was a very simplified, very limited functionality. On the current Connect platform, or the current, or the new Kona platform, technicians can create work order themselves. So if you want to provide that ability, when a unit comes in a shop, the technician can then look at that unit, indicate what works to be done, and then the manager reviews all the work that needs to be done at the end, just making sure that all the right parts are issued out, or if you're billing it out, and to indicate that this is $75 an hour and at an hour and a half and all that fun stuff. Okay, so in this case, the technician is logging in here. The unit just came to the shop, and the technician is going to create the work order himself. Okay, so this ABC transport. Click on select. I'm going to click on more work over here. In this case, I'm going to do a PM. Oh, there it is. It's the DOT. So I'm going to click on add. Now it's under my work required, and I'm going to click on the icon here. Just get rid of this little pop-up. All right, so if we click on the description, this is going to generate a checklist. All right, and this checklist can be customized. So maybe certain units use a certain checklist, or maybe if the same set of units, a PMA would have this checklist, a PMB would have this checklist, and so forth. Okay, so it can really customize. Right, so at least for this unit, we have this one here. So I'm click on the different sections that can be set up. So for most of the time, most of your checklist would be a pass or fail. So you'll notice that right now, all these line items, at least the ones that are pass or fail, automatically default to pass. We can also set it up where if they come and log in here, the technician needs to manually indicate that each line is pass or fail. All right, so really just another making you aware of this option. So they're all pass. We can also set up where some line items require a date value. Maybe last time something was checked, or check the seal for something. That can be done as well. Okay. Then we have tires, and for tires, we can enter in a value between this and that. Let's say your tire, how much tire is left, your how much brake is left, etc. So in this case, for this tire reading, let's put 35 to get through this. Okay, so as you go, the system is going to prompt everything. Sometimes there could be some line items that are not really pass or fail, it's just not applicable to that specific unit. Select NA. Okay, so I'm going to quickly. Okay, so I want to indicate that there's, the technician checked the starter and there's some issues with that. All right, so I'm going to fail that. And put in the date here, just get through this inspection. Okay, in this case, this PM is not due, but I'm just doing it for this example here. So another warning in case you're doing PMs that are not required. So now I'm going to click on the defect summary over here. All right, so the system is like, okay, here's your inspection number. This was the date that it was done. And of course, this is any defects that we identified. Of course, this is a check starter, and we indicate some issue starting. All right, so technician, I'm going to sign off on it, just to indicate it's done. And now what's going to happen is you'll see over here this fail PM. Whenever there are any failed items from a PM inspection checklist, the system is then going to create as an action item. All right, so it appears over here. So our system logic is as follows, right? So we did the PM inspection. We're like, okay, everything is done. We'll click on unit ready to let the manager know that, to get us off of this to-do list. So upon clicking on unit ready, it seems like, well, hey, you have a defect, right? This check starter, what's the status, right? So the system does require any PMs or any defects identified from a PM that defect is added to the work order. Sorry, okay. So even if a defect, let's say, maybe it's waiting on parts or it's low priority, we still need to add it to the work order. Now, if I go back to the summary tab, system is going to ask me, okay, so we know there's an issue with a starter. What's happening now? Did you fix it? Did you repair, or you deferred it? All right. So if we defer it, what's going to happen is this specific job is going to remain under work required. So really deferred work or service reminder. Anytime a manager runs a report or looks at that unit, or a tech looks at that unit, they will know that this needs to be done. Okay. In this case, we'll indicate that this specialty was repaired. Okay, so I'm going to indicate this is done. All right, and now that unit has been completed, and tech can now work on another unit. So if I log back in as a manager now, if I go under my PM Inspection Manager, I will see this defect, this PM report that I just created. So if I click on Print over here, the system is then going to generate a printout, right? So on top you have your header information, you have the values for each section, all right? And of course, for the engine, the starter, we have fail, so this is in bold. And below, the system is going to tell you that, okay, here are the defects, if any, which there are. What happened here, which work order was repaired on. And of course, the way we have this set up is when a technician completes that work order, they will sign off on it. And if there are any items that were deferred or repaired, the technician that did that or repaired or deferred it will also sign off on that as well. All right. So you have a lot of accountability and tracking of who did what. So who did the inspection and who repaired the defects, if any. All right. Any questions on that part? Okay, hopefully pretty straightforward. All right, next thing I'm going to go over is really the parts ordering side. Okay, so very similar to the current system today if you want to order parts. So I'm going to go to the Order Parts tab. So first thing I'm going to do is really looking at just manual PO. So let's assume that your process is if you want to order parts, you create a PO, which you then email or fax to the vendor, and then of course when the parts are here, you receive against that PO. All right, so let's go with that process. All right, so we'll click on Order from Vendor. Okay, of course you have multiple warehouses. You select that warehouse you want to order for. In this case, I want to order parts from Acme Parts. So click on Select over here. And if you know your part number or description, you type it in here. If you have a barcode scanner, you can scan that barcode. Search by description here. So let's say I'm add 2 of these guys here. Do a search. Pick this alter. Fix one over here. Let's add this one as well. Okay. And of course, if you want to link a specific part to a labor line on a work order, that can be done as well. So on the far right, there's a link button. We'll say, okay, this part is for this specific one over here. All right, so let's assume that is it. We're happy with the PO. We can then click on Submit Print PO. And the system is then going to generate a printout, which you can then fax or email to the vendor, in this case, Acme Parts International. Okay, let's say this is a rush order. So 3 hours later, or let's say an hour and a half later, the parts are in the shop. And now we're going to receive those parts. Okay, so click on Receive Parts. So by default, it's going to show us all our outstanding POs. In this case, Acme Parts is here. So we click on the PO number. We're like, all right, they're both here. Click on Receive Parts. Let's say there was a price increase, and now this part is actually, $19.75 instead, right? And because we requested a rush delivery, they charge us a fee for that. So let's say shipping, they charge us $15. Indicate that. Okay, and let's assume we have the PO in front of us, and or sorry, the invoice in front of us, and it matches here. So it's $4.23, matches what I have. Click on receive parts. I can enter in the invoice number. If I have a barcode label printer, I can click on this, turn up the labels. If not, I just click on receive parts, and it's going to do two things. The system is then going to receive those parts into inventory, update your on hand, as well as record that invoice number. Okay. Of course, it also generates a printout here just for your reference, and it knows that, hey, this specific part was for this specific labor line. So this is then going to issue that part out to that labor line as well. All right. So let's assume that actually you don't do POs. You rather call the vendor, the parts are in the warehouse, and then at that point in time, you then receive into inventory. Not a problem. So in our system is, and it's called quick receiving on the current Connect system, and same thing here. So on the receive parts, we also have the quick receiving option. Click and receive parts. Let's assume we're going to order from our good old Acme Parts again. Or if you have new vendor, you click on new vendor and then go to that process and add that information, right? So you can quick create on the fly. And a lot of things in our system allows you to do that as well. So now we have receiving. If we want to add a new part, that can be done from here as well. So let's see, I'm going to quickly select this whole backs, I should say. And let's assume this is the only part that we need. The parts in the warehouse, we're just receiving after the fact. Everything looks good. Click on receive parts. Let's say we don't have the invoice number yet. We're just going to receive it for now. Okay, and then the system is now going to update your on hands. Let's assume that an hour later, the vendor just emails you the invoice. We're like, okay, all right, here's my invoice. I can go in and type in that invoice number now. Enter my invoice date, create my invoice, and now we have that stored against the system. All right, of course, let's assume that, you know, sometimes you might do a manual order, but let's say a lot of times you do a lot of replenishments. All right, so same thing. If we want to create replenishment under order parts, we have this generate orders button. Okay, and we have we should have 4 replenishment methods. The first one is really based off usage. So any item marked as stock in the system, if you use it from this date range to this date range, the system is going to create a suggested order for that preferred vendor for that part. All right. And then we have part master ordering setting, which is really using your min max. So if you got a part that was min of 3, max of 6, when your on hand falls to 2 or below, it's going to order up to your max. And the last one here, well, I guess the third, I should say, is just in time. And what this really is, it's using looking at your historical usage to forecast how many of certain parts that you would need to order for the next period. So let's say you order parts from a vendor far away, you try to order how much lead time and for a specific period. All right. And of course, the last replenishment method is AutoReplenish. So if your sponsoring dealer, or if you use it today with your sponsoring dealer, where certain parts, oops, wrong one. If you have certain parts that are marked as AutoReplenish, and you use that part, it's basically your usage reports. So if you use these parts, the system's then going to order that same part from your vendor. So it's to help better manage your inventory. You don't have to worry about having sufficient on hand. Every time you use it, your vendor's automatically going to send those parts over to you. Okay, so that really would be the 4th replenishment method. Any questions on part ordering or receiving? No? Okay. So one new thing, or I guess not really new per se, but at least new to the user, is that you can now upload your list of parts or units, etc. So in the past, let's say you have a new vendor, you have 500 parts, you have to manually create those on the front end, or get a PO from the dealer or whomever, and we'll bill you for it to upload those lists of parts. However, on the Kona platform, it's all self-administered, so you can really upload your list of parts, units, etc. So it's pretty straightforward. So let's say, for example, you have a new vendor or you start servicing new types of units and you need to get all these parts in the system. So manually creating those parts from the front end, you can basically download a template. And then populate those lists of parts. So your item code, your description, unit measure, who the preferred vendor is, the cost, and so forth. And then you would upload it into the system. And then, of course, if there are no issues, they'll be imported in. If there are errors, if let's say, for example, if the cost you put instead of $50, you put S0 or something, system will let error out. So any strange errors will appear here. But if there's no issues, they will be imported into the system. Same thing for on hand. So our system does have a physical count screen. However, if you rather do it by Excel spreadsheet and import it in, that can be done as well. Another option is your part locations. So instead of, let's say you have a new warehouse, and instead of manually going to each part indicate, okay, for this warehouse, this located on shelf B, row C, etc., you can download a template and upload that information. And same thing, the upload applies to your list of units. Download a template for that. Also for readings as well. Let's say you have a telematics system that can generate readings in some kind of export format. You can then get that information and then copy and paste it into our template here. So the customer, the unit number, the reading date, the time if required. Otherwise, you'll default to midnight and the reading value and get those numbers into the system. Okay. Also have fuel as well. So if you do want to do fuel and track fuel, that can be set up here. And then same thing for the customers, your list of customers and list of vendors. All right. Right. So nothing, of course, is counter sale. So if you do counter sales, this option is also available on the Kona platform. So counter sales are really straightforward. Select location. If you have multiple locations, select the customer that you want to create a counter sale for. In this case, I'm select AFS Transport. Select or scan the parts that you want to add. Okay. The system gives you the total here, and of course, if you want to invoice it out, click on invoice. The system generates a printout. It's going to then create that respective counter sale, and then reduce your inventory by the quantities that you had issued out. So another thing to note as well is from a financial perspective. So for those of you that use an accounting suite with our system, so whether it be like QuickBooks or Peachtree or Sage 50, Great Plains, whatever we support today, will also be supported on the Kona platform. So to really export out, we go to the Financial Manager screen. On the current system, it's really two steps or two screens you got to go to. So the first thing is you got to go and generate the journals. All right. Select the period, select the journals that you want to create for, and then go to another screen, the Export Journal Batch screen, and export the batches. So in this case, you can do it all on one screen, generate your journals, and then once you're done, you click on Export and get that file out. And the third step, obviously, would be to import to your respective accounting system. All right. So not too much changes from there. And of course, I do want to reiterate that if you currently use it on our current system, you don't have to make any other changes. All the settings are there. It's just an updated interface to get the information out and into your accounting suite. All right. Another thing I do want to mention is reports. So the reports on the Connect system can be scheduled. So a really common one is to schedule your PM report. So instead of running a report manually every Monday, whenever, we can schedule it. So click on Schedule Report over here. So let's say I want to schedule a report every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Okay. And I want to look at all units that are due for PMs within the next 7 days, or maybe all PMs that are maybe your shop is driven off mileage. So let's say anything due within the next 5,000 miles, and specifically I want to look at the odometer. Okay. Enter in the email of all the respective recipients. Okay, and then the next part of the wizard is just confirm and click Schedule Report. All right, and what's going to happen is every Monday, well, I guess after 6 a.m., because the system's going to start running at 6 a.m. So let's say by 6:05 a.m., you'll get a PDF report, let's say a PDF report in your inbox. And this is really what it would look like. And of course, that parameters say, okay, show me only for these units, or maybe units at a certain location or belong to a certain PM group. Okay, so this is what it would look like. So you get a PDF every Monday morning with a list of all units that are due within the next 7 days, if that's your parameter. So it gives you some information, okay, how many units are due, and these are all the units that are outstanding to be done. Those are the main functionality I want to go over. So hopefully, the Kona platform is definitely a lot easier to learn, and we added additional functionality to make it a little more full feature, especially from the repair side, specifically technicians. So if you want to transition over to the Kona platform, the first thing you want to do is to log a request if you have not already done that. To log a request, you want to go to our support portal, and that's support.emdecs.com. So I'm just going to type into this chat box here. So to log a ticket, you go to a support portal, click on Need to Raise Request, Contact Us, and Report an Issue or Ask a Question, and then just type in your name, your you log in here, and just information and say, hey, I want to transition to the Kona platform. And really, there are a few. So the first step is log your requests. And once we get your information, we are going to create your login on a test environment with the Kona access, so you can play around and not affect your production environments. At the same time, we're going to create an agreement between between your company and Brightwater. And what it really entails is that when you transition, your current support fee will increase by 15%. So that's 15. So if you're paying $100 a month now for maintenance fees, it's going to increase to $115 per month when we move to the Kona platform. All right. If you want to purchase additional tech licenses, or if you want to purchase tech licenses, it's $69 per month per tech. If you want to purchase additional manager licenses, it's $125 per manager per month. All right. One thing I also want to indicate is if you are a Web Connect customer, which is really a very light version of the system, there is no upgrade path. So if you do want to transition over, you'll need to buy new manager licenses at $125 per month, or tech licenses at $69 per month. All right. So nothing to note is if you come to our support portal, there's a knowledge base. So if you want to learn more, click on the Gen 2 knowledge base. All right, so we have various videos, a lot of detailed manuals, tutorials, walkthroughs, things of that. We also, of course, have online training classes. So even if you haven't signed up yet and you're just curious what it'd be like, it would be a session very similar to this, very classroom type setting. And then one of our support team members would go over that specific topic. So whether it's administration, data uploads, repair orders, ordering parts, etc.